Mr. Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to my friend, the gentleman from Massachusetts, who is also the chairman of the Subcommittee of Oversight and Investigations of the Armed Services Committee, Mr. Meehan.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding, and with all due respect to my friend from New Mexico, I want to make the point that this resolution does not do anything to stop funding for the troops. As a matter of fact, it was this administration that sent 140,000 troops into harm's way without up-armored Humvees. No, I won't. There's nothing in this to cut funding for the troops. But you can stay as I tell that this administration sent 140,000 troops into harm's way without up-armored Humvees, without Kevlar vests. And what did Secretary Rumsfeld said? He said you go to war with the army you have, not the army you wish you had.
My colleague from Massachusetts, given his comments about the resolution and the support for the troops who are deploying, would join me in a unanimous consent request to amend the resolution to express our intent and the intent of this House to support those in the U.S. Armed Forces who are serving and who will serve in Iraq.
If I may, we have supported the troops. In fact, if not for this Congress, working in a bipartisan way with Republicans and Democrats, we never would have gotten up-armored Humvees into the theater.
Reclaiming my time, this is exactly my point, is the gentleman will not support those who are deploying, and the resolution does not do so. And I thank my colleague from Arizona for the time.
Gentleman, Joe, Missouri.
I would yield 2 minutes to the Majority Leader at this moment.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Chairman, for yielding, and I was watching this debate from my office, and I was constrained to come to the floor. There are legitimate issues raised by this resolution as to whether or not you support or do not support the escalation that has been proposed by the President. But no one ought to hide behind the troops. No one ought to come to this floor and say that this Congress, 435 of us, will not support whatever soldier or sailor or Marine is deployed to Iraq. Whether it's today or tomorrow, they will have our support. And when we say in this resolution, they are serving, it means that if they are serving, if the Commander-in-Chief has sent them there, we will support them. And very frankly, for my friend from New Mexico to come to this floor and make the representation that somehow we have limited that support to those who currently are on the ground is not an honest representation, in my opinion. There are those of us who disagree as to what supporting the troops means. My friend, the former chairman of the committee, just got up and said he hasn't gotten any calls lately, but we got a lot of calls in 02, in 03, in 04, in 05. And today, Chairman Murtha of the Appropriations Committee is saying we don't have the armored Humvees for these new troops that are going to be deployed or in the process of being deployed. So when you come to the floor, my friends, debate the substance of this policy. But do not hide behind the troops. Do not assert that anybody on this floor does not have every intention and commitment to supporting, to whatever degree necessary, our young men and women, and as I have said, some not so young, who are deployed in harm's way at the point of the spear. Because no one in this Congress, and our troops ought to know that no one in this Congress will not support them when they are deployed at the point of the spear.
Will the gentleman yield?
I'd be glad to yield to my friend. I'd be glad to yield to my friend.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. The point that I made was...
I was not referring to you, my friend. I want to make that clear. I yield.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the armor issue. The point that I made is the idea of coming to the floor and implying that somehow there was bad faith with this government for not having the new body armor that our troops presently have to the tune of 400,000 sets, that somehow that was a dereliction of duty, is also a disservice, not only to the former Congresses, but also to the former administrations, because the last administration, in the year 2000, had 0 sets of body armor. Body armor is a new advent. It's a new system. We now have hundreds of new systems that we've injected into the warfighting theater. So the idea that we had a ragtag military moving across a berm into Iraq is also not accurate. And I would hope that the gentleman would admonish his colleagues who come to the floor to imply that our people went across that berm unequipped is also not accurate.
Reclaiming my time.
I thank the gentleman for yielding.
I thank the gentleman for his observation. I'm not sure the gentleman and I agree. I am not an expert in this area. Do not serve on the subcommittee or the committee. But the information that I have is that the troops that we sent in 03 and 04 on the ground did not have sufficient quantities of body armor for each one of them. Now, that may be inaccurate, and if the gentleman thinks that assertion is inaccurate, I'd be glad to yield.
Well, my point is to the gentleman.
Is that inaccurate?
That is inaccurate if you refer to the historic amount of body armor that our troops have had.
No, sir. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman.
Then I would say, yes, that is inaccurate. The way the gentleman stated it, if he's not going to qualify it, that is inaccurate.
No, I don't want to
because
qualify
we've never had body armor
until
this war.
Is the gentleman asserting that all of the troops who were in Humvees in 2003 and 2004 had armored Humvees, or that they had all of the troops deployed in harm's way, and by the way, being in Iraq is in harm's way wherever they may be, had the sufficient body armor. Is that what the gentleman's asserting?
The gentleman and I are good enough friends that the gentleman will allow me to make a one-sentence answer, and the answer is not since 1776 until just a few years ago have American troops in Vietnam, in Korea, in World War II, in any war, had what is known as ballistic body armor. It is a brand new thing, and we've got yet new systems that we're going to be putting into the field shortly. So they don't have the newest, and they didn't have the newest. They now have 400,000 sets. But to imply that lack of having them from 1776 to 2000 made them into some type of an unequipped force is also not fully true.
I thank the gentleman for his observation, but of course my assertion was not 1776 to 2000. It was 2003 and 2004. But the point that I will make, and if I can conclude, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time. The point that I wanted to make, though, is irrespective of that assertion one way or the other, I believe every one of our colleagues, whatever their view on this resolution might be, all 435 have every intention and will, in fact, do whatever they need to protect and promote the safety of our men and women in harm's way. And the assertion, I tell my friend, that was made by the gentlelady from New Mexico, that the verbiage of this resolution says because serving, it does not mean those who will serve. Obviously, as soon as they are sent into theater, they are serving in Iraq. And they are covered by this resolution. There ought to be no confusion on that issue by anybody on the floor or anybody who might be listening to this debate.
Would the gentleman yield one last time?
I'd be glad to yield to my friend.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Let me say to my friend that I think, and I listened to the gentlelady's discussion. The gentlelady is a very careful member of Congress. And she looked at the words, and she asked the question, does this include, because it appeared that it refers, the equipage language refers to people who are presently there, but does exclude, and she's a very careful person, and I've been in markups with her before, in committee meetings with her before. She's very careful about wording. Words mean things. That it doesn't refer to people who are going to be deployed by the president in the future. And her worry, and I think it was a sincere concern, is that people who may be sent by the president in the future may end up seeing a cutoff of funds, of supplies, O&M dollars, as a result of this Congress. So if the gentleman is assuring us that that's not going to happen, I think that's good news to the gentlelady from New Mexico.
Reclaiming my time, I'm glad that it's good news. I will repeat. No one in this Congress, not Chairman Skelton or Chairman Murtha or any member on this side, will take any action that will put at risk the men and women who we have placed at the point of the spear in harm's way. I make that representation to you, that assertion, and I make it as strongly as I can possibly make it. This is about a policy as to whether or not we ought to send 21,000 additional people. And as the gentlelady from New Mexico said, she herself has great reservations about that policy, but rationalizes voting against the resolution, which opposes that policy, on an assertion that I think was not correct. And if she wanted that clarification, I'm glad that I could give it to her. I thank the gentleman. I thank the gentleman for yielding.
The resolution we have in front of us this week, there's not much there. I think it's a lost opportunity, and the one thing that's not there that's I think critical is that it says that we will support the troops who are there or who have been there, which begs the most important question that this Congress does have the constitutional authority to decide, which is, are we going to give the equipment and the support to the troops who are on their way there, the 20,000 that are being ordered to be deployed? And I think that's a critical omission.